Fathers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to begin this afternoon's session. And this afternoon, we have two eminent scholars, one to present his important findings, the other will respond to that. First, we have Professor Lewin, who is the Professor of Sociology of Peking Universities. His academic interest focuses on the sociology of religion. He is the author of The Governance of Religion in China, The Transformation of Yiguandao in Taiwan, and he has many articles being published in the Sociology Quarterly, Sociology of Religion, and he's also being a scholar in different places in different countries. His current work focuses on the areas of measure of the Chinese religiosities, which is a topic that we have been well discussed this morning and will probably explore further into in the later days. And also the new religious movements in contemporary China, and also the church's relation in China, and also urbanization and religion. And this afternoon, he will be speaking on a very interesting topic of, we all know that, how am I going to turn this off? See, I'm not very good in gadgets. See, the best way is to take the battery out of it. Thank you. See, he's an expert in German, so no. Okay. Now, we all know that the Christian community grew in a very phenomenal rate in the past many years, reported by many. So Professor Lewin is going to give us a finding counting number of Christians in China. I'm sure you will all looking forward for this fascinating expose of his. And then I will introduce the respondents later after Professor Lu's presentation. The time is yours, Professor Lu.
Okay. First, I'd like to express my gratitude to the organizer inviting me to attend this very important and interesting conference. And I'm quite honored to present my research in this conference. As the title suggests, my research is on how many Christians in China, that is counting Christians in China. Before we enter the discussion, I should tell people that what Christian means in this paper. In this paper, I use Christians to define Protestants. In Chinese, it's 基督徒. It's Protestants rather than Catholics and Protestants. Just refer to Protestants. Because in China, Catholicism and Protestantism are two different religions, at least in the opinion of government. So in this paper, I just use Christians to refer to Protestants. How many Christians in China, in contemporary China, it's a very controversial topic. And the Chinese government thinks that it's around 20 million. And in 2005, according to the central government's website, it stated that there were 16 million Christians. But for the overseas institutions, Christian institutions, the number is much higher. In 2001, Johnston and his colleague estimated that there were more than 19 million Christian population, among which 80 million are Protestants. And Ekman also suggests that there are 80 million Protestants in China. The World Suggestion Christian Database, which was published in 2011, suggested that there were 100 million Christians in China. Around 60 million belongs to the host church networks. So there is a debate of number on Christians' numbers. Chinese government think that it's less than 20 million Protestants. But Christian institutions think that there are more than 60 million. So there's a debate. The question on the number of Protestant in China is not simply an academic question or purely a numeral issue. It involves complex political and religious consideration. It's not my opinion. I just cite. So the general consensus in overseas regards government's religious affairs bureau tend to deflate the figure because a high figure on Christian would suggest their incompetence in executing government's religious policy. The overseas mission agencies tend to inflate the figure for its self-interest because a high figure of Christian population would prove their effectiveness in their work and enable them to further their help for mobilization support among their supporters. So there is a different opinion. So despite the huge difference between the reported figure between the Chinese official and the overseas mission organization, both groups employed the similar data collection method. It means counting heads, or 数人头 in Chinese, using head counts. The government's channel is to ask local official 3 self-churches to report their figures to the local religious affairs bureau, and the local government office would submit their figures to the regional office and eventually to the national office. Most of the overseas mission agencies do not reveal their methodology, lost their sources of data. Usually, these figures are reported by host church networks, and randomness and unreliability of the data is clearly evidenced. So the methodology is the same, although the result is quite different. So I think that it's time to change. Change what? Change the methodology. So in this article, we just try to shed new light on the debate over the size of Christian population in China by analyzing the latest data from the China Family Panel Survey, CFPS, hereafter. So what is CFPS? It's domestically funded PKU by Line 85 NSFC. It's very expensive survey. It's spent around more than I think, okay, 1,000,000 万. 1,000万. I think 100 million. Oh, 10 million. Okay, 10 million. Okay. Yeah. Every year, it spends more than 10 million renminbi to do this investigation. It's very expensive. So my PPT is very expensive too. And it's a nationally representative longitudinal survey. It's panel survey. Conducted by the Institute of Social Science Survey of PKU. So we have a special institution to carry out the project. And the name is Chinese Family Panel Survey. So it's conducted as community, family, and individual level because it's very important. I just use some PPT to introduce it. Okay. Both a nationally representative sample and 5 self-representing province interview everyone in the sample family. All baseline individual samples and their newborn babies and adopted children remain in the sample indefinitely. So it's community, family, and individual. And it's include some major topics, but not include religion because it's a little sensitive. So I just do not include it in the main topical domains. But we have 3. We have 3 questions. Actually, at first, it does not include the religion question. And I just persuade the principal investigator to add 3 questions. Finally, I get it. So there are 25 provinces, and Xinjiang, Qinghai, Tibet, Inner Mongolia, and Hainan do not have sample. Okay, some larger sample is Gansu, Henan, Liaoning, and Guangdong. So these are field outcome, and some data are released for the latest 2 waves has been released to Chinese user. If you are interested in it, you can just enter their website, and it will get some detailed information. So questions related to religion in CFPS. In CFPS 2012, it just included the first question. Which religion do you belong to? 你信哪一个宗教? Buddhism, Taoism, Protestantism, Catholicism, Islam, no religion, and others. 2000, we can see that these, questionnaire or instruments just reflect the Western ideas or understandings toward religion. Just include 5 religion, 5 official religion. Confucianism, that's religion. Popular religion, that's religion. So it's very limited. So in 2014, but although it's limited, but it's a standard way to investigate religion, Chinese religion. For example, Worldview Survey and Chinese General Social Survey, they use the same way, the same instrument to investigate religion. So I just suggest that it's not right, because in China, our belief or religious belief focus on gods or deities rather than religious affiliations. So in 2014, I just suggest that we should change the instrument. Actually, Professor Wu Fei, we also discuss the instrument. We have a small team in Peking University. We just get together to discuss how to measure Chinese religion. And finally, we just change. The first change, we permit multiple choice. Because at first, you can just choose one religion. But in East Asia, wow, okay. So multiple religions. And in 2015, we just asked 你信什么? First, 佛菩萨. Second, Taoist deities. Third, Allah. Four, 基督教的上帝. Protestant God. 5, Catholic God. 天主教的天主. Okay, in English it's the same, but in Chinese it's quite different. So 6 ancestors, 祖先. And no. So in 2000, the third wave, we just using the first wave's question. We just want to know the difference. And in 2000, we just designed the instrument. We change again. The change is that Jesus Christ, 耶稣基督, and Catholic God. Perhaps it also it's same for in English context, but because we permit to multiple choice, it's okay. So we add another one, ghost. Perhaps you believe ghost, okay. So the main purpose is to improve the measurement of Chinese religiosity rather than to measure the so-called house church. But there's some unintended consequence. That is, it helpful for us to seek the hidden Christians through change questions. Okay, I will discuss this later in detail because the time is limited. So the first is open questions, open Christians. The so-called open Christians are those who would like to acknowledge their religious identity or Christian identity in the survey, when you ask, are you Christian, which religion do you belong to? He would like to state that Protestantism or Catholicism without any difficulty. So that is, we can say there are around 2% Christians, open Christians. And these are data from CGSS. This is from CFPS. CGSS is carried out by Renmin University, and it's very good data. So you can say just the same, around 2%, 2% open Christians. Hidden Christians. So many scholars would question that the validity of Christian population in China through survey questionnaire, because there are some complex composition within Christian population in China. So it's very difficult to delete through questionnaire. Yes, it's true. There are some, at least 2 sections. The first section is so-called 3 self churches. Another section is underground or house church networks. So, but we cannot ask the interviewer, are you house church members? We cannot do that. So we can just use the change of questionnaire to get the idea. So we have 2 ways to get the to recover or to seek the hidden Christians. The first is through the data on religious practice. If you do not agree you are Christians, but you go to the church every week, okay, I just regard you as Christians. The second is through the change of question format in pilot survey. So the first, we can just have a look at the first method. To use the data on religious practice to provide a revised figure. Religious practice relates the participation in religious activity and is measured by the frequency of participation. Generally, Christians would participate once a week. If a people who declared to have low religious affiliation, but filled in 2 to 3 times or more per month of religious participation, we can suggest that these people would be very likely hidden Christians. But there is a risk because these people perhaps are hidden Catholics or Orthodox or unclear members such as the Mormon Church, because it's just go to the church. We don't know what church or which church. So we just regarded them as Protestant church. We can just focus on the red CFPS. So it's around 0.34% are hidden Christians. Another way, we consider those who do not choose Protestantism in CFPS 2012 or 2016, but reported believing in Protestant God in 2015 as hidden Christians. They're around 48% of the total population, as the table 3 shows. So in 2014, we asked, do you believe, what do you believe? Do you believe in Protestant God? People would say, oh yes. But in the first wave and the third wave, they would say, I don't believe in Protestantism. Okay. So just say this one. The 0.48% are the second category of hidden Christians. But there are some overlap. So we just pick out the overlap, and we can get that it's around 0.81 of hidden Christians, including the overlapping cases. So the size of Christians in China can be as large as 11 million. We call this combined estimate too. We also want to seek the nominal Christians. We define nominal Christian 名义上的基督徒。Nominal Christians are those who either choose Protestantism as a religious affiliation or believe in the God of Protestantism or Protestant God. 基督教的上帝。Anytime, just one time, it's okay. I just regard you as Protestants. So table 4 lists the percent of those who choose one an affiliation of religion at least once in CFPS. We can say it's around 2.67. So this is a nominal Protestant in China. So based on the above analysis of and the CFPS 2014 data, we can get 5 estimates of the number of the Christians in China as table 5 shows. That's it. I think it's the conclusion of this article. So we have estimate 1 is open questions. The proportion is around 1.66. Hidden Christians, it's around 0.81. Nominal Christians, 2.64, 67. Practicing Christians is 1.26. I'd like to explain the estimate 4. The estimate 4 is just you think that you are Christians, and also you have some practice. At least go to the church once. So the survey shows that because many people think that they are religious, but they never go to, they never attend any religious activity. For example, Catholics in China, around 40%, exactly it's 68%, never attend any religious activities, never, 80%. And I think that perhaps they just get their religious affiliation from the family, but they don't believe it and they don't practice it. So we just delete those who never attend any activities, and we get practicing Christians. It's around 1.26. So the estimate 5 is around open Christians and hidden Christians. It's around 2%, 77. Because I don't want to suggest that hidden Christians are house church members. We don't know, but totally I can hold that open Christians and hidden Christians is around 40 million. 40 million. So that's the estimation I'd like to use. These are some 5 minutes. Okay, just so according to CFPS 2013, there are around 25 million Christians, open Christians. So regardless their affiliation being with 3 self-church or house church fractions, these people openly admit their religious identity, and we call them open Christians. From CFPS and CGSS data, the percentage around 2%, exactly is 1.96%. And we can assert that there are around 27 million open Christians in China. Other than these open Christians, there are around 0.34% of respondents who claim to have low religious affiliation, but admitted to attend weekly services. There are also 0.48% of the respondents who do not identify themselves as Christians but believe in Protestant God. We call them hidden Christians, and they are very mostly to be the member of house church. So in 2016, this group number is around 11 million. So we are waiting for the fourth wave, 2018 CFPS survey to have a better picture of this group. From the 3 waves of CFPS surveys, we can have around 2.67 of those who have reported at least once for Protestantism as their religion. We call these nominal Christians. Therefore, in 2016's population, there would be around 36.6 million Christians, nominal Christians. So many of those who claim Protestantism as their religion did not participate in any religious activities. They are Christians in name only. If we just focus on those who had at least 2 or 3 times of religious participation per month, we call these people the practicing Christians. They account around 1.26 of population. So it's around 17.3 million in 2016. And finally, if we add hidden Christians and open Christians together, we get around 38 million Christians in China in 2016. So this is the upper limit of Christian population based on these surveys. With available data, however, we believe that the figure represents an accurate size of Christians in China. So that's a conclusion of my research. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Professor Luke, of his very detailed research, and I'm sure they will have many discussions. And now we come to the respondent, Professor Johannes Erhard, Jesuit, who graduated from the University de Molière, and in communications now taught in Germany before, and now since 20-some years ago, professor right at the Gregorian University in communications. He had authored many books, including the Semiotic Theories, Public Relations, and Related Fields, and also Cinema and Semiotics and Power Scandals, and award of the Ward Chair in 2011 in the Macquarie's University in Milwaukee, and also the 2016 recipient of the Taiwan Fellowship by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of China. I have to make it correct. Yeah. No. There are peoples in there, yes, but it's the Foreign Affairs of the Republic of China. Present research and writing on the religious communications. And now the time is yours, and looking forward for your initial response to that paper.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to have met for the first time in my life Professor Lu, who has introduced us to such an important and expensive research, which, by the way, by German standards is still quite cheap. These kind of things, they cost a lot. I mean, it's refreshing to see numbers. And of course, we are aware, and in the paper you mentioned it briefly, that there's a war going on. Basically, it's are there more Christians than party members? Now, the famous Pew Institute in the US, they come up with a number that is enormous. But when you look, where did they get the number from? It's completely unsourced. So they say estimates, but who estimates? So you see, I mean, this power game is interesting in itself if you are interested in games, but we have the same things elsewhere. In Germany, for instance, you have regularly these very extensive and dedicated even to religion surveys, which then are published in a public affairs magazine, and of course they are used to tell bishops how much a failure they are. So it's always an instrument of power, and these numbers they inevitably are used as pawns to discredit somebody else or lend credibility to somebody. Now I speak as a social scientist, so I'm not interested in the power games here. Religion is a nightmare for social scientists, especially, and that might not have come out so clearly, the enormous work behind these simple questions, designing a questionnaire on religious matters. It's not for the faint-hearted, I tell you. It is costly, certainly, but I assume, and let's assume it here for the argument's sake, that it has been done completely professionally. I mean, for 10 million renmin, you can expect something like that, can't you? And of course, you could always say, I mean, this is a more technical question. You speak about the longitudinality of the survey. So that means, in other words, these probants were not anonymous. And if somebody does not respond anonymously to such delicate questions, then you are introducing easily a bias into a survey. But that's a technicality. I also hope, of course, that these numbers finally make it into the official government numbers somewhere, and not only what you say, the reports submitted by the officially sanctioned 3 self-churches, but these are serious numbers. Okay, I said it's a very difficult subject, and in spite of appearances to the contrary, and in a subtle way. One encounters these endemic and pervasive difficulties also, or even a fortiori, in surveys producing numbers with a serious validity claim. The crux with religion in social inquiry is generally not well understood, I must underline, and is far from being universally acknowledged as a problem. Of course, there's no need to take exception at simple questions on identifying with social groups. I mean, you were asking in your first surveys, are you Protestant or whatever? I mean, these identifying questions are not a problem. The only question is, what do they tell you? As you found out when you introduced the category of a hidden Christian. Because we know in surveys generally, when you ask people about sex, about religion, about morally difficult things like fraudare lo Stato, as they say here in Italian, evading taxes, things like that. So you get this desirability bias, and there are a number of tricks to get around that. You have to ask in a third person, what would you advise your daughter to do, things like that. But it really doesn't work very well. So these, are you Protestant, Catholic, Hindu, or whatever, demographic identification questions are not really the problem because they don't tell you much. Not only does this merely measure identification with a social group via a supposed commonality, such as race, history, religion, or any other imaginaire social, as Castoriadis would say. About praxis or persuasion, however, which is usually what social inquiry is curious about, it doesn't indicate anything. Thus, I again concur with that it was more informative to redesign your questionnaire, especially in the context of Chinese culture. When I come back to that. Comprehensive surveys about human persuasions and practices, in addition to political convictions and marketing research, have indeed been around for many years now. Religion figures as just another persuasion. It's either piggybacked in more general surveys, such as the famous Shell Jugendstudie in Germany every 4 years since 1953, World Vision Kinderstudie, also done by Infratest, a famous social inquiry firm, Germany, and then Was glauben die Deutschen was the title of the religious inquiry, which was done by a public affairs magazine Spiegel, or paid for, by another very renowned inquiry institute called EMNIT, which you probably know as colleagues. I mean, I had the pleasure to get the answers, to get the operationalization from EMNIT once, after such a survey. And when I answered one question theologically correctly, I turned out to be an atheist. So it is very difficult to design a religious survey in this. I think, I mean, it's clear from the religion point of view what turns you into a Jew, into a Muslim. I mean, you have to recite the Ashhadada, and then you are a Muslim in front of two witnesses, or you get baptized and then you are a Christian. Now, that's clear. In Germany, we have Austria, Switzerland, it's a telltale sign if you pay or not pay the church tax, but you can not pay the church tax for very good reasons, because, I mean, you can think the church is too rich anyway. But, so these identification questions are not really the point. So, quantitative research probably would want to resort to qualitative investigation, and we know lots of stuff in that field, especially in Chinese, with Chinese religions. Ethnography, religious ethnography, we had an anthropologist here this morning who told about these things. James L. Watson, talking about his fieldwork in the village Hasuan around their Tenhou cult, found that everyone was free to believe whatever they liked, as long as they performed the ritual Rite et Recte. After many difficulties, he stopped asking those belief questions, and one informant told him, "It was a good thing you stopped asking such silly questions. We just do the rites in the proper way, and we don't worry about what any of that stuff means. I doubt the ancestors care either." So, for him, that was a good excuse to dispense himself to find out what really religion is. So he just collected the information about these rites. To construct a really a valid construct, so operationalize from the basis of a valid construct of religion, it was a very wise decision, in my eyes, to resort to practices. I think it was in the Renmin survey, not in yours, I think, if I remember right from what I've read. Yes, practices are much more indicative, and there were a number of practices, for instance, which a Christian would not do. That's why it was used as a test in persecution times. For instance, to step on a cross as we saw in the latest film of Scorsese, Japan, Silence, he wouldn't step on a cross. Under the persecution of Diocletian, it was the same. So, yes, but these are negative signs. In the past, it used to be 100 years ago in Germany, divorce. If you were divorced, you couldn't be a Christian. But nowadays, these, in this case, negative practices are no longer a sure indicator. So it becomes even more complicated when you turn to the very interesting and rich religious field. I mean, we were talking about this morning about this thing, redemptive societies. You have in Taiwan, you have all kinds of practices, and mentioning ghosts is just a faint hint to how complicated all of that can be. In Taiwan, you have a temple for the ghosts of aborted fetuses only. I mean, this is a religious practice. If, as a woman who has aborted, go there every year and sacrifice, this is, if you have a proper concept of religion, it is religion. No? So all of these things, if you take them, I mean, in social sciences we know that it is called material culture science, material culture tradition. No? So yeah, you can buy Buddha and put it in your car, and the Buddha, through the movement of the car, is reciting sutras. It costs you, how much? $13.99. You can buy it in the internet. Is somebody who is buying that Buddha and puts it into his, is that a Buddhist? A colleague, social scientist, has found that in Indonesia, religious car stickers are very prominent. So what does that practice tell you? So there's an enormous reservoir collection of practices which somebody might judge superstitious, but a social scientist shouldn't care. A social scientist must be informed by their construct of religiosity. So if you go even a little further into this direction of questioning practices, I think, my hunch, I don't know, I'm not the Pew Institute, and I don't offer numbers, but I think you could find quite a number of practices that tell you how people feel and live religiously. And that is what social science is all about. We want to know what people in their real life do think, are convinced of, and are persuaded of. Let me close with the Nobel Prize. Niels Bohr, a Dane, whom you might know, certainly know, but to whom we owe Bohr's atomic model, was said to have nailed a horseshoe above the door of his cottage in Tisvilde, he knows where it is, which is supposed to bring good luck. A visitor asked him, "Are you superstitious? Do you really believe that horseshoes bring luck?" He answered, "Of course not, but they say that it helps also if one does not believe in it." So far.
Thank you very much for both of them. Very stimulating thoughts. On the one hand, we have a social scientist who is doing the very detailed, meticulous surveys, trying to find out some kind of religiosity patterns in China. On the other hand, we have communication expert and also social scientists in its own right to expanding the various possibilities of religiosities if we really like to do any kind of meaningful quantitative work. And now the time is for the floor to open to a further exchange and dialogues among the audience and both of our experts on the floor.
Can I respond to his comments first?
Of course.
Okay, sure. So, thank you very much for your insightful comments, and your reference is very helpful for me, and I will read it carefully in future. Yes, for famous pew, I think it's infamous pew. Yeah, because at first they want me to do the investigation on religion in China, and it's too sensitive to do that. Finally, they published their reports. Actually, it's based on the spiritual life survey by Horizon, and I attended the survey. Actually, I participated designed the questionnaires. So, but Pew didn't tell us where they come from, how did it come from. But I know. So perhaps I will discuss it later in detail on these questions. For the others, so actually, I just told you, perhaps I should use one article to discuss the measurement of religion in China. Actually, my field work is in Taiwan, just as you, and my PhD thesis is on Yi Guan Dao. Yeah, you also mentioned it. And you also used Graham Nance articles. He's my supervisor. So anyway, I do a lot of field work in China and in mainland China and Taiwan. I'm very interested in field work because I can hear a lot of ghost stories. And it's very interesting, and I become very scared. So I know what it is. I know the complexity of Chinese religion, and because I do qualitative rather than quantitative research, but I think how to measure religion in China is not only a science, but also a kind of art. So it's very, very difficult. Perhaps I just want to say one more word. You say, do you believe in institutions? Actually, when I do field work, we ask them, what do you believe in? Buddhism, Taoism? No. Believe what? I believe in superstition. He just smiled. Superstition. So I'm just wondering if I should add one choice. Superstition, 迷信 in China, because they know what they believe. But I know it's a little stigmatized. So anyway, thank you so much for your insightful comments.
When you said that the...
Can you also say your name and institutions? Yes.
Lars Lahmann from the School of Oriental and African Studies in London, University of London. When you talked about the, I forget the proper term, but it was the Protestants who were non-practicing. They were non-practicing Protestants. Is that
Pardon?
On your list? There was one category which said they were
open Christians.
Open Christians. Yes. And Christians is 基督教 is Protestants, or is it?
So can you speak Chinese?
Yeah.
Perhaps you can just use Chinese because my listening is not so good.
OK， 那些基督教徒，如果他们是就是信教或者但是不是那个 practicing Christians 啊，他们为什么自己算是他们不对不起他们不信教，他们也不那个 practice， 但是他们自己还是认为他们算是那个基督。
Okay,
就是基督教徒。
that's nominal Christians. Perhaps
因为他们的那个祖先是
I don't know. Perhaps their parents.
经过那个洗礼啊。 they have been baptized?
I don't know. But for this category, I think that yes, there exists one category, just as you say. But for the reason, the data perhaps I should prove the data. Okay. Okay.
Oh, there's a person over there.
Yes, I'm Fredrik Fällman, University of Gothenburg. 还是说中文还是英文
But up to you.
Okay.
Up to you.
Yeah, both.
If you can,
I take both. I take both.
English is
Both,
easier
yeah,
for
yeah,
the
sure.
translators
I take
to
both.
translate for others. Otherwise, others may have difficulty to.
Both or
No, I mean if you use English first and you supplement in Chinese.
yeah. But the question is fascinating material, and I also wonder the same as last two. But we can skip that till later. But then, of course, there's a basic premise that hasn't been mentioned. You use different words. 信仰, 你信什么? What do you believe in? Do you expect people to have a clear conscience of what is religion?
Actually,
They
we
don't.
just
I mean, we here are scholars. We have learned for many years what is religion, or we think we know. But of course, faith, religion, religious practice are very different things. And you get, that's also a premise question. What do you ask, and what do they answer to?
okay. Very
你问什么问
important
题，
question.
他们怎么回答？就是这个问题。
Very important question, and yeah, we have several discussions on this topic because in China, religion, I mean 宗教, is very confused. And do you just you just when you use religion, they just limit to sometimes 5 religions. So we just try to avoid the term religion. I don't know if it's religion or not because ancestor, perhaps not religion. Ghost, perhaps not religion. But just use 你信什么？我们不问你信什么宗教，只问你信什么。But the choice are religious, because we perhaps you believe in God, 信神 or 信教 believe in some religions or believe in God, and according to my understanding, in China, Chinese people just focus on the belief of gods, of deities, rather than religion. Perhaps they worship a lot of God, a lot of deities. So we just use the deities rather than religious affiliation. We don't define its religion or not. We just try to avoid it.
What I don't understand is why you don't make 3 totally different surveys and after that see how they combine. Well, in Taiwan in the 1980s, they asked 3 series of questions. One, 你信什么? What do you believe? 你属什么? Okay, what do you belong to? And the third one is about what you practice. And most of the time, of course, it doesn't combine at all. Someone can not believe in Christianity, for giving an extreme example, not belonging to a Chinese church, but going to the church because his wife goes and he goes with him, for instance. And, well, no, but that kind of things happen all the time, and it happens for all religions. So most of the time in Taiwan, the 3 categories were not concording. And it is maybe only in 25% of the time that you are totally consistent in what you believe, what you do, and your feeling of belonging to such or such community. So what I would like to ask, do you have other surveys that make you able to go from feeling of believing to feelings of belongings and actual practices?
Okay, very good question. And perhaps in another article which discusses the measurement of Chinese religiosity, I will give you a detailed answer, but I just describe it briefly. And in Taiwan, there is a research carried out by Lin Benxue and anyway, his colleague. He just first asked, do you believe in religion? Many people say no. And follow for those who think that they are not religious, do you believe in deities? Many people say yes. And many people say no. Okay, just ask no. Do you worship gods? Worship deities? Yes. So just actually, when you follow up the question, you can find that those who think that they are non-religious, regard themselves as non-religious, 98% believe in gods or worship gods. So what I want to do is, because we just have 3 questions. One is on religious affiliation, the other is on religious activity, the third is, your the importance of religion to you, something like that. So it's very difficult for me to just design one question to measure the religiosity. In spiritual life survey carried out by Horizon, because it's a very long questionnaire. So I can use a lot of questions to identify your religion, but in the CFPS, I can just use 2. So it's very difficult for me to do that. Perhaps I should get more money, and I can have a lot of questions.
Okay. Because I have discussed some questions with Professor Lu a lot of times. I think this data is much better than others, although there is some problem perhaps. I have 2 questions for this. One is just related to some other questions. That, when you in the questionnaire, when you say, do you believe? Actually, in Chinese, 你信. It's perhaps it only means, do you believe that there is a God?
Yes.
But perhaps you don't believe it in the way as a Christian does. So how can you actually define that it's a Christian believer or something? And the second question is that because you also in the questionnaire you also have choices for other religions. So do you happen to have also the number for like Catholicism, Catholics? Yeah.
PPT. Back to PPT. Okay. So yes, very good question, and perhaps. I don't know if you still remember, we discussed it for Professor Zhang Zigang. Just want to insist that we don't want to use, we want to avoid the term religion. So we don't want to use our religion. And do you believe in it? 你信什么? Perhaps it's not a perfect way, and I still want to improve it. But how to improve it? Perhaps we can discuss later. It's actually not my decision. Perhaps you remember we discussed it for detail several times. So yeah, perhaps it's not a perfect one, but at least I can accept it. Anyway, we should try to improve it. The second question is about what? Catholicism? I think there is. It's around 0.55, around that. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I would like to raise a question. I fully appreciate that it's under extreme limited conditions in China on religious matters in any kind of survey, it's sensitive. And perhaps the idea of religion has already been dominated by the government of certain kind of defined political connotations, within which one identified with religion is a sensitive matter. So I guess that may be the reasons. I'm just speculating, but my question is on the methodology itself. Is that you did a survey? I mean, your Peking user survey, based on the large samples and small samples from about 20 some different provinces, within which five autonomous regions and provinces you do not survey because the populations are low. Is that the main reason? Now there are several provinces and autonomous regions that you have no data from there.
Yeah.
And is it because of its low in population or insignificance?
No.
Okay. It's a limitation of other factors.
Yeah.
Okay.
I cannot speak it.
No. Okay. You cannot speak it. Okay. So I will withhold this question. But for the other provinces, some you select a high number, some you select a low number, right?
Yeah.
Is that for those 5, you select a high number, and I noticed that Guangdong, Gansu, and a few others.
Henan.
But there are some, but for particularly the Christian populations, they are not equally distributed in the parts of China. Let me just, for the Catholicism, they are concentrated more than 25% in Hebei, another 10-15% in Shanxi areas. Those two provinces constitute almost more than 40 to 45% of the Christian populations, I mean the Catholic population, and at the same time, for the Protestants, the overwhelming concentration is in Henan, Anhui, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang. And how do you try to make the weight balances of these clearly unequal distributions of religious populations within your, which can be reflected into your results?
Okay, very good question, and it's a very technical question. And it will be very difficult to explain it. Just briefly, the large number province. Just want to speak that in this province, we can use it to do some how to speak it, 推论. Okay. Perhaps I should speak in Chinese now because it's too complicated. And I think you can understand me, so you can just try to
for the floor to understand.
Yes.
Basically.
它这个就是从统计的角度上来讲呢，这4个省是有自代表性。这4个有自代表性的抽的样呢，确实是比较多，但这并不意味着它会去影响到全国的代表性。因为在这个里面有一个复杂的就是换算，就是尽管你比如说荷兰它的基督徒人数是超过其他省，你的意思是如果那边过度抽样，导致会它的这个会基督徒的比例会增加，但是这个里面就是说基本上来讲，我们已经把这个考虑进去了。如果要讲的话呢，我们可以再仔细的再去写，就是它是怎么样去做到这一点的，因为它是分阶段多阶段分层抽样，然后一步一步的，以至于尽管说某一个省抽的比较多，但是它不会影响到它的代表性问题。所以 ，sorry for my English not so good.
So in other words, if I understand correctly, is that in the statistical analysis, the weight balances has already been put into consideration.
Yes.
This is called the weight balance. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And the weight balance is being built in within the different surveys by the time scale and the sample population is calculated as the weight balance factors
Yes.
per province base. Okay, good. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Maria De Giorgi. I'm from the Gregorian, but I live also in Japan. Enough. My impression is that the problem, rather than statistical, is a conceptual one. What is religion? Religion is a very ambiguous term and concept. For instance, if I think in Japan, if you ask people do you have any religion? No, they say. Then, if you look from another point of view, people who follow somehow the different religious tradition overnumber the real population, I don't know how many millions of. So what's the problem? The problem is a concept itself of religion. Don't you think so? What religion is?
Yeah.
What do people think about religion?
Yeah, very good question. And I think that I have explained, but I want to speak something more. Especially in China, religion is a very confused concept, and people are very, foreign to it because it's a foreign concept. So, anthropologists think that Chinese worship three kind of supernatural beings: ghosts, God, and ancestors. So I don't want to define it as religion, but we can say the fourth wave. We just do believe in ghosts, ancestor, deities, something like that. So I just try to avoid the word or the term religion because it's very difficult to define it, especially in China. It has some because religion, 宗教, this term just come from Japan. So it's totally. Yes.
Really.
Yes. Yes.
You would like to respond to the religions?
Well, I can only concur with you. I mean, certainly religion has a significance in the sense that it's a differentiational term from superstition. It was introduced to differentiate it from superstition, which, however, together would be the complete phenomenon, and superstition is just a valuation, a value judgment, which is gratuitous in this sense. But helpfully, I mean, you have to think of these poor guys who have to design questionnaires. And they seem to be simple, but they are not. And in matters of religion, as I said, they are a nightmare. So the idea to connect it to some practices which you have to find, I mean, you can't ask 100 practices, but which practice would be defining for, I mean, you have films, a Taiwanese film, all of a sudden the widow sees her husband in a white fish. I mean, does she believe in ghosts? Doesn't really matter. I would suggest, but that's another topic, a construct of religion is carefully avoided in social sciences, in anthropology, religious ethnography, but it is unavoidable because they don't know what they are researching. That's why I say you have to go into that, and my answer is, of course, semiotic. And I think you have to approach it via the time dimension. In the Christian context, we speak of ta eskata, the last things, which is not the end point of a series, but it is a kind of parallel time, but of a different nature. And the same thing you have in Vedic, post-Vedic religions, in Buddhism, and in Chinese religion, and it is a cosmology, which is expressed in myths, in Hinduism, or in Taoism has this very complex, even the order, the cosmos of the body, everything. So this is a temporal category, which could be used to differentiate something as religious and something as a pure empty custom. That's my suggestion, but it doesn't really matter for the questionnaires, because only as a researcher you have to know your construct, and then you have to design very simple questions. And I suggest a practice. I mean, 5, 10 telltale practices that tell you, okay, this guy, he's really atheist, and the other one not.
If there's still some time, I would like to give an observation very briefly. I think sometimes we better understand the data or the field work statistically, but not theologically. Otherwise, our explanation and the question will make the question even more complicated. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I invited a quite famous theologian from the United States to pay a visit in my university, and invited him to offer a public lecture. And after that, a student asked, "Do you believe in God?" So the theologian said, "What do you mean by God?" So the student explained it in detail way, and after that, the theologian said, "If so, my answer is no." So he's not an atheist, he's really a very serious theologian, but his answer is no. So in this case, I think maybe in the statistical analysis, nothing is exact. And we can hardly find which question is the best. But I think the question is good enough to tell us roughly the fact. For instance, for me, I think, do you believe in God is better than the question of religion, about religion. Actually, in Chinese, do you believe in God is still quite different with another question. Do you believe that there is a God, or God exists? It's different. So I think it is a good question, not best one. Yes, thank you.
Before we come to Professor's questions, at this point, I think our discussion comes into a very interesting dialogues, not only between disciplines, sociology versus theology almost, or religious studies. So we may seemingly talking about something very simple, but we all have our own interpretations, and that is exactly the purpose of this conference, so that we all can learn from each other's disciplines. Your interest, you're getting exact numbers. Your interest is getting some kind of more metaphysical definitions, but nevertheless, we are living in the same platform, or we are trying to do something which is meaningful in our own discipline vis-a-vis different views. This is exactly what we are doing. Seemingly very confusing, but that's the purpose. And secondly, we are coming also to a very interesting intersection, especially this morning's Professor Yang's discussion, about the different understandings between the Christianity and Chinese culture. In that particular point, our colleagues mentioned about the term religion. Exactly, that is what we have. Seemingly a very simple term, but it is introduced actually from Japan in 19th centuries, trying to basically bring the concept from a monotheistic religion from the West and trying to measure the affiliations in the Eastern culture, which is a totally different world altogether. And at least 10-15% of discussions are on back to the same issues. What is religion? And even sometimes we'll ask, why ask this term? So therefore, it is another encounter of East and West. And as Professor Yang discussed, yeah, precisely this is the moment where that we can be mutually enhancing. Why stick to this term? And why not use this term? And what is the meaning of those terms in different contexts? So that is bringing up a lot of new things that we can further actually explore. And not let this turn to be hijacked by political entities, but for more academic or other purposes. Yes. yeah. Maybe, okay. Maybe, okay, okay. Just one point, and then followed by TS, yeah.
Thank you very much. This morning someone said that China probably can help to rediscover what religion is. And I thought that, yes, it's so, because probably in the Old East, the concept of the way is much more closer. And Jesus said, I am the way. He didn't say, I am the religion. And probably you have to discover something in that dimension that is much more dynamic concept. But just, sorry.
This is it's just a little bit of comment, not the questions. And I suddenly thought of the superstition, the question of the superstition. And I think this is the key issues and made it confusing for all of us. And because we try to distinguish it from the religion, from the superstition. But let me recall the history. 400 years ago, Matthieu Ricci landed in China. I think he was finding the religion, the good religion. The Confucianism, the Buddhism, and the Taoism he disliked. And the Confucianism he has to be faced with. So this is the problem. And he used the superstition first. And I found that he used the term of the superstition rightly in his book, the Christian, the Christian conquered the China. So the European language written, and he used the term for the superstition. I think for Chinese, we don't need to use the religion. And until the 20th century, we borrowed introduced it from Japan. But we needed to define it and define the good religion, to choose it, to establish it, to reform it as a modern religion. So this is the problem. So we're still in the process of this kind of defining and the define. So this is the questions. Probably this is the mission impossible. The mission impossible, we cannot define the good religion from the bad religion we dislike. The folk religion does not exist. But for 200 years ago, the Protestant missionary, not the Catholic missionaries, the Protestant missionaries try to define the folk religion, because the superstitions practiced everywhere. Then we try to distinguish from the good religion, like Confucianism, the Taoism talks about the cosmology, the Confucianism talks about the political science, and the Buddhism talks about the words, the different words. So they try to distinguish from, but eventually they needed to define some folk religion. Actually, when you go to the field work, and I go to some countryside as well, and I found that it's it's impossible to distinguish from. So they practice the doctrines. Maybe they know something about the doctrine, but actually they don't care about this. They just worship the ghost. Even they use the term of the ghost, but the ghost was not a bad word, not a bad term. Confucius said the 鬼神, okay, the 鬼神, the 惊天地泣鬼神, 鬼神是为德. That all the good words. But this kind of terms got rid of by Matthieu Ricci at first. Then the Protestant, the philosophers in Europe defined it as. So now we use the ghost, and actually the ghost developed into spirit. And then they everywhere. Yeah, so that's my comment, probably.
Maybe we have time for one more question. Anyone would like to use this prerogative? Okay. The final question by the lady there at the back from Focolari. Yes.
I asked permission. It is the second time that I ask questions. So thank you for the clarification of Dr. Chen. I do agree. However, I have to say, if the questionnaires comes to me, the census come to me, honestly, now I don't know how to answer because I'm much confused. No? How about, I just want to know from you, before doing the survey, have you, first of all, tried to, not living from the, I mean, not initiating the work from the institution or university or qualified organization, but to collect the data, to collect opinions from the people, having a grassroots survey, because I think the common people in China nowadays, maybe they need some clarification also. So maybe together with the questionnaires, if you have worked out a kind of guideline with very simple indication of quite clear category for the people, maybe I think it is a local work that could be done before making the question. So just to work and to survey locally before acting nationally. What do you think? Thank you.
Me?
Because you do the survey.
Okay, because you think that, I think that you just... okay.
But I think she's asking what kind of preparation you have given.
Okay, if you want to get the information, you can go to the website and you will get a very detailed answer. And I just want to appreciate my help, your help from Professor Yang. Perhaps questionnaire or doing survey is not a perfect one. I acknowledge that. But it's a way to access to the truth. And if perhaps sometimes we are wrong, and you can see we are wrong. So that's very important. And that's social science. We can say we are wrong. So that's very important. We don't say we are the truth. No.
Final comments?
If you pay 10 million, you would certainly want to test all your questions in the questionnaire, which is, if it is professionally done, and I assume that it was professionally done, is certainly the case. But they sound easy, the questions, but there's much behind it. Even as every comma basically counts, not just every word. However, it is a religion is a very, very difficult subject, and you cannot. I mean, yes, identifying with something that's easy. And you can also question: are you a woman or a man? Okay, that's easy. So these. Now there's a third.
It's very difficult.
You tried it in Thailand.
You can get at least 200 answers.
But with religion, it is not. You cannot ask, do you believe in God? That is not informative. What information do you want to get out of that?
Yes. We do have a very stimulating discussions, and I think there's more than enough food for thought and need times to digest. But no matter how we comment on this survey, but one thing seems to be clear. The number of Christians and Catholics has been much more than 30 years ago. That seems to be something you can rely on. Now, that's one thing. And second thing was that I did field work for many years in China, and there I have been encountered with a very wise Christian leader some years back in northern part of China, in Liaoning. I asked him, how many Christians are there in China? Exactly the same question. And at that time, it was the nighttime, he told me, I look at the skies. Look at the sky. How many, do you see a lot of stars? I said, yes. Yes, there's so many Christians there. But it all depends on the weather. And that may seemingly, okay. So we give a good hand for these two,
Okay.
and then we go for our coffee breaks. Thank you. Thank you.
哎呀，你这个解释功夫简直太厉害了。